All right. Hey, everybody. TG here. It is July 2nd, and we got out there on the social medias. We got YouTube, X, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and whatever else I got hooked up there. And we are back in the Moxie room. I was with you guys this morning for a little over an hour, so that's been fun. And we've put on a couple trades going into this. So let's kind of walk back through a few things just to get everybody else out there on the interwebs a little bit caught up with my narrative and how that's actually been working out. Let's start with kind of the interesting situation that happened yesterday. We all saw the market pull back. It is the first of the month, which means also quarter end. So we had a lot of that. I think we had a lot of window dressing. Basically, this market was just ripping from the tariff tantrum lows back in April. The market's been straight up, all that kind of stuff. And the end of the quarter was yesterday. And so I think that, up. I was looking at this and saying, hey, I have a feeling we should be pulling back because things are extended. And they're probably going to do it after the quarter closes so that they can close their books and keep all the window dressing on. Well, if you look at the NASDAQ and if you look at the SMH, so the semiconductors and the FANG stocks, we exactly got that pullback. You can see there was a pretty sharp drop yesterday. Fantastic. So on the surface, this is exactly what I was looking for. And I actually had put on a call credit spread on the SPX for this exact event. Because you can see here, the NASDAQ went down. You can look at FNGU, which is the leverage ETF of the FANG stocks. You can see it went straight down yesterday. And we could look at the SMH and look at that. It went straight down yesterday. But amazingly, the SPX, the S&P, was caught in the middle between the mega caps and tech that went down. But then everything else went up yesterday. The financials went up, the small caps went up, equal weight, basically all that kind of stuff went up. And that meant that the S&P basically was unchanged. So it totally ruined my call credit spread that I had going on here. So I want to say in principle and with the idea that I had going on with this, totally worked out. The idea was absolutely correct, but did not foresee that the small caps were going to rip when the mega caps dipped. So that was kind of a thing. I said, okay, fine, we'll have to throw that off. But then, as I've been saying for a few weeks now, that we should have a bullish run into the 4th of July, which I think we're having. And that going in, the market had been so high last week that I thought there's no way they can keep pressing this thing to the high side going into the 4th of July without some sort of opportunity. They need to refresh this. They need to do something. And that's what we saw yesterday. They dropped the mega caps, the semis, all the FANG stocks, all that stuff. They dropped those yesterday, and then they bought the dip today. I mean, just so the fact that since the S&P didn't move, I thought, okay, S&P is going to be bullish. We're going to be 4th of July. They're going to buy the dip, all that kind of stuff. So we put on a put credit spread yesterday for tomorrow. That's working out well. I think I have it over here. I know we're up something like at least 50%. 10%? I feel like we should be up more than that. I'll have to do the math on that. But either way, we're up and it's looking good. And you can see we're up like that. I think that today is probably going to go to 62.20. A lot of Gamma is calling for that and saying that we should be moving up. So yeah, Andrew, a long time no see. So yeah, I think we're going to be probably looking at 62.20 because this looks like it wants to break out. I mean, we're pretty much already bull flagging right there on the 15-minute time frame that you guys can see. And as the Gamma is calling for higher, I think 62.20 makes sense. And then we'll see what tomorrow, which is the 3rd of July. Now, remember, it's also a half day or at least a shortened day. I think it's like 2 hours shorter. So this looks good. And because of all of this, because I kept saying, hey, this dip from yesterday is probably going to be the thing that gets us propelled up into the 4th of July, we then bought the dip this morning or bought the low on the SPX with a 0 DTE trade. So we bought a long call on the SPY, and you guys can see that here. I took the 61.8 call. We bought it right there for about 84 cents, something around there. We sold half of it here for $1.30. So if you look at this, that's about 60%, And I said, I think this market's going to keep going higher. So we're hanging on to the other half, and we're up. Look at that, moving as we're talking, up 100%. So far on that 0 DT. And I have a feeling we could probably let this thing go maybe most of the day. We'll see where this thing wants to end. But I have a feeling we're going to be kind of strong for the rest of the day. And you can see here, that even on a 2-minute chart for the call option, I mean, look at this. You had your big move up. It kind of pulled back, settled in. Look at this bull flag. And you can see here it's now starting to break out. So this has been pretty nice. And we're up, yeah, as I said, 100% on that second piece for the SPX, which is looking fantastic. And why is the chat not working? Don't know why the chat's not working in the restream, but oh well. So we got that. That's looking good. Yeah, you can see markets continuing to move up. And then if you look at the FNGU or come on, let's get the right ticker. And you can see this. Look at that nice double bottom on the 15-minute. There's your double bottom. There's your pullback into support. That's looking fantastic. Semiconductors continue to rip, which is pretty impressive and amazing. I'm kind of wondering when this is going to end. But yeah, you can see here, it was just a little too frothy coming into this week. I said there should be a pullback. We got that pullback. We got that pullback. Buy the dip. Now we're up. Okay, so this whole narrative that I've had, that I've been communicating to the Moxie subscribers and traders and all that kind of stuff, has been working out beautifully. And as far as where the SPX might go, yeah, Robbie, let's take a look at some of this stuff and kind of get this situated. So GackSpot, this is one of the tools that I look at. It's saying 6220 is the biggest node. Now, if we can look at Spot Gamma, let me refresh this. It always needs a little bit of a refresh. And we look here, let's get 6220, which also confirms in 6230. So yeah, probably somewhere around there seems pretty reasonable. Of course, they can always overshoot and then come back to it. But yeah, you look at this and you can see this is the order flow for options, and you can see it's bullish. Took a little bit of a breather and looks to me like it's starting to come back up. So yeah, I would certainly be looking at 6220 and change for the SPX. And if we come over here and look at the lower time frames, yeah, look at that bull flag. So nice. So nice. Gotta love this bullish seasonality, 4th of July. I have seen this enough times that we were prepared for it. And the only, I gotta tell you, the only thing that threw me off was that the SPX did not move down yesterday. Everything else did, except for small caps. And then I said, fine, if you're not going down, then you're going up. And so we put on a put credit spread here and we're good. And we look at that, we bought right there. We bought that call this morning. So pretty happy about that. We'll see where the market goes. 6220 is right up there. And we got that. Now I do still think that we're going to get some sort of pullback. I feel like this bullishness into the 4th of July, fantastic. July is also supposed to be bullish, but again, we're getting a little bit frothy. I'm getting a little bit concerned about the market up here. Of course, I think they're going to keep this thing propped up into the 4th of July, but then what happens next week? You know, it's kind of like, think about quarter end. We just saw on yesterday, well, Monday into Tuesday, that they kept the market propped up. And then because of one day, because the date changed from June to July, they took that opportunity and they dropped it. And you can see just how much they did that. I mean, look at FNGU. This is leverage ETF of the FANG stocks, and you can just see they absolutely dropped it. So it is possible that there's manipulation out there. So if they keep this thing propped up into the 4th of July, just understand it is totally possible that they might then drop it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, something like that, just because the event is over. You know, let's all play nice for the 4th of July. We want to have a good time. We want to be able to have our barbecues and, champion America and look at the fireworks and all that kind of stuff and not have to really worry about the market. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm thinking about that. However, there could be some things. We know we have the July 9th tariff deadline kind of coming up. Trump mentioned it yesterday or the day before. I think it was actually yesterday. He was asked, is he going to still do something about that or he's going to delay it? He said, nope, I don't see a reason to delay it. I'm going to keep going. And so that might be a thing. Okay, so we need to be aware of that. He could always change Taco Tuesday, right? That could be a thing. And then we could also have the big, beautiful bill situation. Somebody in the Moxie room was kind of talking about this, that if the bill doesn't pass this weekend, Monday could be a mess. That's true too. I have a feeling that the market kind of gets set up for something usually, and then it just looks around and waits for the trigger. And if I look at this, I'm seeing something very similar from here to here, looking real close to each other. And I think that the market could use a little bit of a pullback and a little bit of a refresher. And so if we think about that, we just keep the thing pressed into the 4th of July, and then maybe sometime next week, whether it's early or late or whatever, then they kind of cycle this thing back down, drop it. I could easily see a pullback down to the daily 21 as a possibility, and all those kind of things. The other side of this, and you can see we're getting a little extended here on the weekly too. Hard to kind of really point much out. But the other thing to kind of consider, this is where you have to kind of think how the market likes to mess with a lot of people. What do you think the news is? So you can look right here. I wanted to get this thing right. So there's our previous all-time high. And we have now broken out. What do you think the news is out there? Market's breaking out. Oh my gosh, this is a bull market. Oh my gosh, tariffs don't matter. All this kind of stuff. And people who have been sitting on the sidelines and kind of amateur traders or kind of, whatever, dealing with money, and they're thinking, my goodness, the market just broke out despite all the things that are happening out here. Like, this market must be unstoppable. I need to get in. And so they are going to start getting in just up here right when the market could possibly start to pull back. And that's how they shake out the weak hands. So yeah, I think that that would be a very reasonable thing to think, that the market could pull back as it starts to lure in all the amateur traders. None of us here, of course, you guys are not amateur. That's why you're here. You're tuned in. You're tuned into some professionals. And that's why we're talking about this stuff. So I'm just thinking, if that happens, I think it would make perfect sense to then pull back right after the market makes new all-time highs, because, well, that's how you'd hurt the most people, right? Yeah, Brighter side of Bloomberg analysis yesterday saying that the taco principle might be bullish for the market. Maybe, but we'll have to see if it actually always happens on Tuesday. All that. Yeah. Oh, and of course, yeah, there's not enough fear right now either. But that's okay. I think not having too much fear is fine. But yes, I do think that we're going to get this move up, and we got to shake out some weekends. We got to slap some people up there. So, oh, you bought the breakout highs? Yeah, okay. You got to be careful out there. That being said, market's doing great, strong. I would love, yeah, GRL, that's very true. I would love to see a little bit of a refresher. I don't really want to be chasing all this stuff. We've had some really good trades. In fact, let me show you. Let me do this. So those of you who are on the social medias, check out my, oh, look at that. We're looking at it. It's like looking at ourselves. It's like Inception. But if you look over here, I made a post yesterday. This was kind of the action that we took yesterday, because I figured the market's kind of topping up and I didn't want to rush for anything. I did think the market was going to be up today. And of course, some of these names are still up, but some of them are actually down. So I'm happy that we took some profits on here, and you can see that all the names that we were in, that we took some profits. Now, of course, there were a couple names that haven't been working out. Like I got stopped out at Tesla. I'm trying to think of some of the other names. Actually not too many. We're actually doing pretty well, but TEM, we're down on TEM. Lucid is kind of a longer dated one, but I think for the most part, everything else, we're actually doing quite well. And I decided to take some profits. We left quite a few things on because I do think this market's strong. And I want to make sure that you guys know about this. So come over. My handle is TG_profit pilot. That's where you guys can keep finding this. I put out my weekly videos, so you can see this. This one's talking about, will the tariff deadline kill the bull market? We were kind of kidding around in the Moxie room that, it may not actually be the tariff deadline, July 9th, that kills it or pulls it back. It could be all these other things that we're seeing for just technical reasons. But the media and the news will probably chalk it up to, oh my gosh, it's tariff deadlines that's causing the market to come down. So those of us who are in the know and on the inside with these things that we know about the market and technicals, we've seen this thing coming. So it's going to be no surprise. Okay. And then, so something like BKSY, love this name, very strong name, but what if it kind of wants to pull back a little bit here? Definitely not a place that I want to be adding or chasing or getting extremely long. If anything, maybe take some profits, or you're just going to have to be prepared that this thing is going to have to want to come down or come in or just flag sideways. I mean, best case scenario is if flags like that, but you have to understand that even a flag like that, you get some pretty good pullbacks in between. So we need to be just prepared for that. What if Because like, look, if you look at this one just as an example, what if price pulls back into the 21? That's several days that you're going to have to take some heat. And you can see here, what if it comes back into something like this? So I'm just being prepared out there, taking a little bit off, making sure that we actually have some dry powder. So if the market does pull back, we have more to deploy when we find these good situations. Obviously, Robinhood finally tapped 100 today. Anybody who's read some historic stock trading books like Jesse Livermore, he's got his century mark rule. So basically every 100, round numberitis, that kind of thing. Makes sense that it came up here, kind of tapped the bell of 100. Of course, it might keep going, but I decided to cash in a good chunk of it yesterday. And the reason is because, well, number one, I think that this is a huge move, and I like to cash in when we get really, really big moves like that. But we, from the bottom, from the first entry we ever had on this thing, we cashed in at 275%, something to that extent. It's up now 337% from our original entry on Robinhood. That is astonishing, especially on just stock. So I love these leveraged ETFs and what's going on with these things. In fact, if you guys like these leverage ETFs too, I'm trying to think where my information is that you guys might want to. Yeah, it might take a minute to find out. But yeah, we've got all sorts of classes here that are going to be teaching about that. I'm trying to think where the last one. I might not have my. There we go. I think it's this. Let's see if everything gets loaded up. Okay, yeah. Come over here, but yeah, we're running a special. If you guys are interested, Moxie Indicator Mastery, $197 per month. We're doing on a monthly basis, and this is haven't done this before. Nothing that cheap. So if you guys are interested, come on in. It's going to be for a limited time only. All that, yeah, we're getting a ton of people. I can't, like, for compliance reasons, I can't tell you guys that you paid for the class in a certain amount of days or anything, but we've had a lot of success in the room, a lot of happy campers, and a lot of people who have been able to pay for their subscription just by being in the room. Okay, so hopefully nobody sues me based on comments like that. But our last entry on Robinhood, we exited at about 40%, and now it's up at 60%. So yeah, great time. This is it's been a fantastic one. But I like to cash in when we get really, really big moves like this. Yeah, so we got that. We got Robin, Bitcoin, BitX. Look at that. This is looking really, really good. So I think Bitcoin is really starting to warm up right in there. We've been patient about this. Now this is the power of the Moxie indicator. We saw Bitcoin pop up over here a while ago. I did not take that one. And the reason I didn't take that is because the Moxie indicator was still below zero. There was no setup. In fact, you can see that price was down, price was up. Moxie indicator was down, Moxie indicator was up. No setup. It was only until later when we actually got a lower low, but then we got a higher low on the Moxie indicator that's when I said, okay, now I'm starting to see a setup. Plus we had price come into moving averages on the daily chart. And we took a trade here. It pulled back just a little bit. Now we're here. We're actually positive on this trade. And so I think Bitcoin is now shaping up to exactly the way that we need to see it. And I am bullish on Bitcoin. I mean, gosh, go look at any of the Bitcoin miners. They're doing great. So really, really happy about Bitcoin miners. Now, MSTR, maybe you guys are looking at this, be like, why is MSTR not moving the way that everything else is? Well, because MSTR has so much Bitcoin, it's really become a proxy for Bitcoin. So it is going to move how Bitcoin moves, but these Bitcoin miners, they kind of have more leverage in a way. And so we're actually starting to see these Bitcoin miners really start to take off in a very, very strong way. If you guys remember, anybody who's watched me, you guys know that the couple of videos I've put out, and anytime I've talked about Bitcoin, I've talked about Mara and things like that. I said, yeah, just expect a little bit of a pullback. But after that pullback, I think this thing's going higher. Sure enough, there we go. We've got the Moxie price trigger. This was a perfect pullback into the moving averages. This thing's doing great. Now, we already have a Bitcoin miner. We have something related to it, so we picked a different one. If you guys are interested in learning more about that and some of the other tickers that we were trading as far as Bitcoin, come on into the room. We're running that special, $197 a month. You only have to pay for it once per month, lower commitment than the quarterly. and we're running it as a special. So yeah, I see a bunch of eyeballs out there on YouTube, X, and Facebook. And if you guys are interested, now's the time to come in, because this market's doing great. And you want to make sure that you are actually in the right stocks. And Bitcoin is something that I love to trade. So absolutely, we are in it. We're taking advantage of the leverage ETF of Bitcoin and some of these miners. Okay. Yeah, so fun stuff. I've just got all sorts of stuff we can talk about. Let me just show you one more thing. Rocket Lab. Once again, this has been another great stock. Now, only after I actually entered this one did I find out that that Rocket Lab has a leverage ETF of Rocket Lab, which is fantastic. So now that I know, I can go do something about it. This one we got in here and we cashed out at about 46%, maybe a little bit higher. I thought it was something around there, 50%, 46%. And we took a little bit off just because it's very extended. And I could foresee that maybe the market wants to pull back a little bit. And if it wants to pull back, great. We have a little bit of dry powder that if it comes down, we can add to it. But we did a really good job of actually hanging on to this the last time. We had a couple big moves like that, and then it pulled back, and you're like, oh man, I just gave back all this money. I could have had more. Maybe I should have sold some. But I said, no, I think we're still good. And the patience paid off, because you can see here it went sideways and then pop right up there. And so what did we do? Cashed a little in on that pop. So let's see if we can get just a little bit of softness in this market. So far, I've been pretty good about nailing this. The only one that threw me off was yesterday when the SPX did not pull back, but the rest of the market pulled back, which was pretty crazy to see. But overall, I'm pretty happy with what's going on out there. So let's wrap up with that. I'm kind of looking at my list and tickers. Yeah, we've got a bunch. We are still in quite a few stocks. So we're having a good day even today. And we're pretty much prepared for anything that might be happening with the market in the future, because it's getting a little bit frothy in through here. So let's keep the market propped up into tomorrow for the 4th of July. Let's have a good week. Remember that tomorrow is closing 2 hours early, and it's probably going to be lower volume. I would imagine most people are going to be either on vacation already, or they're just checking out. It's not going to be a big deal. I would like to see if the market actually ends on a high note. I think that will happen, but then I think we need to be a little bit careful next week. Okay, so just make sure you don't get too excited and get the fact that the market's up like this to get too shaded by anything else. You still need to be on guard. Look at your indicators. Look at some things. I'm seeing clues that the market's a little top heavy right now. Okay, so go do that, and remember, we're running that special. If you guys are interested, come on over to the Moxie Room. We're having a good time. Lots of happy campers inside of the Moxie Room. We've got a really good chat box in here. Everyone's becoming friends. We're seeing some new faces. And yeah, as I said, happy traders, happy life. And we'll see you guys later. Take care.